Done.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. We're just a couple of minutes away from getting started. So if you just bear with us, we'll get started in a couple of minutes' time. So make yourself comfortable and we'll be with you in a moment. Hey, everyone. We've just going to give it one more minute before we kick off. Got a few more people to join us. So there's more and more people dropping in as we go here now. So if you just give us one more minute, we'll get started. Thanks very much. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining another edition of a Full Stack Lunch and Learn webinar series. Today we're focusing on getting your sporting organisations ready for the return to sport. We've got a special guest joining us today as well. To introduce our team who will be taking you through today, my name's Cam O'Riordan, I'm your host. We've got Andrew Gowling from our team, who's our sports specialist in our region, and he'll be guiding us through the webinar. And we're lucky enough to also be joined by Shannon Gove, co-founder of Rostify, who will be finishing off with. So we really appreciate everyone's time as we go through today's session. We'll run through some slides and a live demonstration as well. And everyone out there, if you've got any questions, just encourage you to use a Q&A chat feature. We prefer the Q&A chat feature to ask you questions. It just gives us a better way of monitoring the questions that are coming through. So if you can use that instead of the chat feature, it'd be greatly appreciated. And we'll try to get through to your questions either during the webinar or at the end of the session and read those questions out. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Andrew, who take us through today's webinar. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Cam. Exciting times, everyone. This is what we've all been waiting for. You know, we can get back into sport, get our members back on there, out there on the fields and whatnot. So definitely feeling a buzz around the community at the moment, heading to training last night, even going past, seeing all the lights back on in the fields and everyone getting back out amongst it. So it's great to see. And I can feel the buzz, even though everyone's on mute, I can hear it as well. So it's good stuff at the moment. Okay, so we've got a few things to go through today. Majority will be based around the comp management side of things and how we can manage moving fixtures, making sure we're covering our ground, just enabling you to manage that process a bit easier. So we'll go through step by step. And as Cam has mentioned, if you do have questions along the way, just feel free to put them in there and we'll get to them as we go through. Everyone has a different scenario. Every sport runs their fixturing, runs their management in their own unique way. So if we don't cover your specific scenario today, just be sure to get in contact with us post the webinar, and we'll make sure you're ready to go for when sport gets back underway. Okay, so the first thing we're just going to touch on here is a say no to cash. Again, we've all gone through this in the last month or two, where it's a tap and go type scenario. Cash is being sort of forbidden from certain sectors, and it's an opportunity for you to do the same and lead the way, whether at your club or your association, to reduce that handling, that manual handling of cash and the safety that surrounds that as well. Okay, so just jumping into a test database that we have set up here. And just quickly, I'll just touch on the process of how you can get that set up yourselves. Okay, so under our registrations tab, we have a payment configuration button here. Okay, and you'll notice that obviously this test database, we don't have it set up yet, but there's two big blue buttons there, you can't miss them. If you do want to get a payment application through to us, it's a simple process of filling out some details about your organisation, uploading a bank statement for us to verify, and then you are good to go. The integrated payment gateway comes hand in hand with your registration process, so there's nothing else you need to do. It's a simple step-by-step process there, so you can then move away from handling cash and checks and money in sock drawers and whatnot as well. Okay, so I'll just keep coming back to the slides just so we can keep track and keep moving. Okay, so we'll jump straight into the comp management part now. Okay, so again, we've gone through a few different scenarios and gathered some feedback from stakeholders out there in the sporting land, and it seems that the majority have already set their fixtures up. They had set them up back in January, February, March, and obviously either none of them started or some of them started, or the case was no fixtures at all. So we'll try and cover each scenario today. The majority of the feedback was around that we have generated our fixtures. Now what do we do? Obviously they weren't played. We need to move them to a later time in the season. We need to reduce our season. We need to shift teams in and out. So we'll be covering that today. Again, if we don't get to the specific scenario that you're in, you can just reach out and we'll be sure to get back to you on that. Okay, so I've jotted down just a couple of points there. So the first one we'll jump into is around competition dates. Okay, so again, just back into my test database here. Okay, I've got a few test scenarios here which we're going to go through. So the first one will be, I've set up my competition. I've set up the structure, I've assigned my teams, I've got everything ready to go, but I haven't generated any fixtures yet. Okay, so you're in a fairly good place there. If you haven't generated your fixtures, you've got the ability to just create a new start date for your comps, and then you can roll in from there. Okay, so again, that's just going into any one of your competitions, editing our competition configuration, and changing the start date. Okay, so our start date here, right? If I'm going to shift that to later in the year, then that's when your fixtures will be generated from. Okay, within the screen as well, you've also got the ability to change the amount of teams, the amount of rounds that become available now is quite a hot topic as well, how we're going to squeeze winter sport into a shortened time frame. So you can go through and manage that process as well. So depending on the figures that I put in here, obviously is the draw that's going to be generated out the other side. Okay, if I just go back into my comps breakdown. So another scenario is that we have generated fixtures. We've had 25, 35 competitions configured. We've got our teams allocated, we've got our players allocated, everything's ready to go, but the start date was back in March. Obviously nothing happened at that stage. So we've got our fixtures there, no games were played. What do I do? How do we move things forward to allow a new start date? So I'm just going to jump into another competition here. All right, looking at my previous date competition. Okay, and you'll see here that this test comp here started on the 4th of April. So these are my dates in which I had set up, I generated all my fixtures, I was all ready to go. Okay, so you'll notice that there is no option to redraw. I can't just say, I want to redraw from a certain date and honky-dory, away I go. Okay, that redraw option is not there because every fixture is in the past. And it seems that the game has either been played, it's been scheduled, so we can't redraw something that hasn't happened or has supposedly happened, sorry. Okay, so there's a workaround here in which we can pull these dates forward. Okay, so I'm just going to go back up to my top level here. Okay, and if I hover over competitions, there's an option here to bulk match change. Okay, so again, looking at bulk, you're looking at every single competition within your database. And so if I click into there, all right, search for my competition. Okay, I can do more than one, obviously, but just for this example, we're just going to use this one here. I'm going to search for my matches. Okay, so it pulls up every round of that specific competition. Okay, and you'll see the dates are relevant there, so back in April. So what I want to do is be able to redraw this competition and bring it forward. So for me to be able to do that, I need to put all my games into a future date. All right, so the system is going to recognize a future date and say, yep, you can then redraw that. Okay, so all I'm going to do here is click on match date. Let's get out of there. All right, I'm just going to say 4th of July. Okay, if I leave the rest blank, nothing else is going to change. So it's only something that you enter into the screen. So I've only changed the match date. So that's what's going to be affected. Okay, and I'm going to apply to these matches. Okay, so every match within that comp, if I go and have a look at it, all right, is now set in the future. So obviously that date would be your start date, your competition start date, which you can now confirm. Okay, obviously this doesn't work sitting here like this. Okay, so we're sitting with every single game on the 4th of July. Okay, but what it's allowed us to do is to redraw, and you'll see that's on the right hand side here. Okay, what it's also allowed, if I go back into my competition, it's allowed me to change the start date. Now, because I've got all my fixtures which have not been played yet and they are scheduled for the future, I can then change this date appropriately. Previously, I couldn't. I can't change a start date with something that's supposedly already done. Okay, so if I just click start date, bring it up to July the 4th. Here as well, again, changing the amount of teams, the amount of rounds, relative fixture templates may need to be adjusted as well, depending if you're managing those teams and comps or not. Okay, and I'll just scroll down the bottom and update. Okay, so that's telling the system that my start date has moved. All my fixtures are now in the future, so I can then go through the process of redrawing. Okay, so if I click on my redraw, I'll be given a couple of different options here. So fixture equalization. So that first option there is to save people playing each other more than once. Okay, so if you have had matches that have been played, so say you've already had 3 rounds and then we lock down and we've gone to now and you need to have those fixtures present at a later date, you can do that as well. You can either use the fixture equalization there, which will take those 3 rounds into account. Okay, so if those teams have played each other in those first 3 rounds, it'll recognize that and put a nice even draw out for the rest of the season as well. Okay, and obviously I can redraw from any round now. Okay, so sorry, we'll just go to round 1. I'll just use my fixture template for this example. Okay, and I redraw my fixture. Now, because I've set my date, my competition start date for the 4th of July, okay, it's going to recognize that round 1 should start on the 4th of July, and I've scheduled it for every week from there. It then puts my fixtures into the future. All right, and this will work with Scheduler as well for users of Scheduler. It'll pick these changes up that those games are now not needed, and any future date games are then pulled through into the relevant areas there. Okay, so that's scenario 2. I'll just pause there, Cam. I don't know if you've had any questions there, wanting to go into a bit more detail there.
There's been none that have come through, but just encouraging everyone out there, if you do have a question, feel free to drop it in the Q&A chat box, and we will attack that question as they come through.
Good. Okay, so something else I'm just going to touch on here as well. There is, of course, the ability to bulk comp rollover as well, so we can roll our competitions from season to season or date to date, bringing everything with it, but the players. Okay, so we can bring our competition structure, our teams, but the players won't. So that's sort of why I'm leading away from that option. Whereas if you use the bulk match change option and go through that process step by step, it will bring everything with it. All it's doing is adjusting your dates. Okay, so your entire competition structure will stay in place for that. Okay, so we did mention managing teams in competitions as well. If you need to, again, there might be teams that have had to pull out or added in, or various options, and depending on your scenario. Again, this is just for those that have that scenario come up. Won't be relevant to everyone. So again, just going back into my competition, my test competition here, and clicking teams. Okay, I'll see a breakdown of the teams that are within my comp, and I can manage teams in that competition. So just the blue button here on the right hand side. Okay, brings up my screen here. So on the left hand side is any available teams, and on the right hand side are the teams that are selected for that specific comp. Okay, and it's just a simple drag and drop over to the left hand side. Okay, when I click update, it will then pick up that change. If I do a redraw, allocating a different amount of teams for a competition, it's going to pick that change up and either put a buy in place or add a new team in, depending how you need to manage that as well. Okay, the next thing we're just going to look at here, and again, this is probably more relevant for the likes of basketball, indoor facilities where there looks to be, you can have only a certain amount of people in and out of a venue at a time. So again, just trying to put some sort of structure in place here, which can assist managing that process as well. Okay, so what I did come across was that, and again, using the basketball example, is that the amount of time a competition or a fixture needs to be using the court needs to be extended out. So we need an extra 10 or 15 minutes after a game to get those players and those parents and those officials out. And it allows for the next lot to come in without them crossing over and having too many people within the venue. Again, so again, just looking within my competitions, I'll use that same example I've got here. And if I edit that competition configuration, you scroll down here, you'll see an option for, time venue required for. Okay, so I've got my match duration for this example, it's an hour, all right, but I need to block that venue out for 70 minutes. So it's going to allow that 10-minute turnover. So it may be 15, 20 minutes for other sports, depending how you manage it, and maybe 5. But what this setting does is it would actually create a clash for you to manage. Okay, so once I update that and I have my fixtures available, it's going to say you can't have those 2 games on the same court within an hour because you've set this to an hour and 10 minutes. So you do need to do something about that. Okay, so what I've done here, I've set up an example of what that will look like in my fixture grid. Okay, and you'll see here, I've got 2 games there. They look fine, but the setting is there that they need to be extended out to allow for that gap. Okay, so these games obviously need to be moved. All right, so if I jump in there and just do this one manually for the sake of it. Okay, I can then extend that out. Now it's no longer a clash. So it's giving you a visual of where there is overlap. And again, previously, it probably didn't matter too much. You could probably have that change over fairly quick time, just with the new regulations and whatnot as well, just to help with that process. And you can manage those clashes either within your fixture grid or within the clash resolution screen as well. Okay, moving on. Okay, so I've touched on everything I had there. Again, if there are questions, feel free to send them through. If I'm going too quickly, you can just tell me to go over something again if you do need that. But we'll now look into our reporting side of things. So the first lot of reports we're looking at now is it's a new report we put live last week. Okay, so again, this is available to everyone now. This appears in everyone's database. So it was built around the thought of, if there is a case, if there is an outbreak, if someone reports that they are sick, how do I know where they've been, what are their touch points within my organisation, so I can actually contact those people and let them know that there could be a potential case. And again, you can isolate and go through that process as well. So it was just allowing an administrator to get that view. And I'll show you how to access that now. Again, it just sits under reports. And probably a good note worth mentioning is this report is eligible at association or league level. Again, it's based around a venue. So that's sort of why that comes into place, because the association or the league sets the venues up. So everything is relative to that specific venue that you have loaded into your database. Okay, so on the left-hand side here, you'll see a COVID-19 tab. And it's a one-click report here, venue attendance, return to sport. So I've got an option here to set my dates, my venue. I can pick from a drop-down box. I can just display the report, or I can email it to myself as well. So again, depending how you want to manage that. So I'll just look back a couple of months and I'll run that report. Okay, so this is just an example of the report. Okay, bringing out your competition name, round, match details, etc. The role of that person as well, so it won't just pull the players in. So if there's an official allocated to that game, to that court, to that field, to that venue, it'll pull their details in here as well. Again, they're a touch point for that person within the venue, so we've thought that was quite important as well. And bringing out parent details as well. So if you are running that and there's a junior player who comes down with a case, it'll pull that information out. Again, if that information is captured during registration, it will pull into this report automatically. And that's our venue attendance report. Now I will hand to Cam quickly just to talk about our next slide, and then I will jump into what we're going to be looking at for individuals and tracking trainings and whatnot.
Thanks, Andrew. So with organisations now returning to training, we needed a succinct way, in addition to covering what we've just touched on, and to see who's taken part in a match and who's been at a venue or played at a certain venue or a certain field at a certain time, and so on. We needed an easy way to be able to assist sporting organisations through Sport Australia guidelines on tracking individuals who attend training. So the time they attend training, the time they leave training, and being able to do that in a succinct manner. So what Andrew's going to show you is how we can export that information. But we've partnered with Rostify, and that will show, Shannon will be able to come on and show you, after Andrew shows you how to export the data and information from our system, how Rustify will be able to assist and digitize the experience for sporting organisations and volunteer administrators across the country. So I'm going to quickly throw back to Andrew to show how you can utilize our platform as a one-click report to export relevant information. And then we'll throw to Shan, who will take us through the ability to track individuals when they're attending training sessions. So Andrew, back to you.
Perfect. Cheers, mate. And just quickly on the reporting as well, we do have links to our help site, which again can further explain those reports in a bit more detail as well. Okay, so we have again just built a specific report. This went live about an hour ago. Okay, so we've just quickly added it in here so we can showcase it. Okay, so again, it's a one-click report which sits under your members tab, and it's called a Rostify export. So fairly self-explanatory in what it's going to do. So it's going to export a basic dump of data of your member data, which you can then take and import straight into Rostify. So I'll let Shan talk a bit more about that. So again, it's just a click on the run. Right, it'll ask for a season, default being 2020 season. I can then email that to myself in CSV format, okay, which can then be used down the track. Just for this example though, I'll just run that report just to show you what it looks like. Again, very basic detail: email, first name, family name, contact details, gender, and their member type as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'll hand over to Shan. I'll just stop sharing my screen. and we'll hand over to you, mate, to provide us some information on the exciting developments on your side of things, and exciting stuff getting to work alongside you guys. It's really great.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys, and appreciate you having us on. And hopefully we can add a bit of value to the community here. So for those that haven't heard about Rostify before, we are an end-to-end volunteer and workforce management solution. We're used by some of the largest sports and events all around the world, from the Super Bowl to a lot of sporting federations throughout Europe. And I think what we've come to realize in this period is the importance for clubs to track attendance for training sessions in a proper check-in and check-out fashion and easy reporting. And so that is a format of what our platform can do, but it can also do a lot more in terms of managing your club volunteers, your bar staff, that sort of thing. So I guess what we spoke to Cam and through this realized there's three things we can help with, and that is on the screen here. It's about reliable attendance tracking, secure reporting, and then simple data recording. So for example, the questions you may need to be asking when people are checking in, how do you make sure they're popping up when someone's attending? Are you feeling well? Have you been in contact with someone? These sorts of things that will start to become mandatory, which we've heard. So I'll walk you through it today. I don't need to spend too much time on it for you, but a couple of key steps. One is that you can import your full schedules of training sessions, which Andrew just touched on, how you can export from Sports CG and import those sessions very easily into Rostify. You can also import all of your users or your players, your volunteers, administrators into the platform and segment them into groups, which you can start to use for communication or allocating to training sessions very easily. The third step I'll show you is actually how you can track the attendance, and there's lots of different ways you can do that. And I'll walk through the different ways depending on how your club operates. So guys, feel free to ask questions as we go along here, and hopefully we can answer them on the run. But quite simply, what you can see on the screen here is the senior men's training, senior women's. A lot of our clients that we're working with, as a prime example, the Hockey Roos, who are using Rustify for their inductions and trainings, but also a lot of local hockey clubs around the country too using this, and they're doing their scheduling or their attendance tracking by month. And so then within this month, we can see the training sessions all in here. And then we can see the overview of, for Tuesday night coming, here's all the players that are allocated to the training. You don't need to tell the players that they don't need to confirm that they'll be attending. That's often done through other systems. It can be done in Rustify, but the players would know that they're coming. But what that ultimately does is creates an attendance form, which I'll go through shortly. So from the front end, there's three different ways that you can track attendance. One is that you can have a central iPad or an iPhone for your COVID officer, which some leagues need to have, and that person can walk around checking in every player. Another option is that every coach can be assigned, for example, 10 players that need to be checking in with them. And so each coach on their iPhone can be given a list of players that they need to check in. The third option is that each individual player can check themselves in and out. And then your club can very easily pull reports at the end of the month, at the end of a quarter, to show every single attendance tracker that happened in this last period, as well as the data captured from the questions. For example, are you feeling well, yes or no? So that's a very quick overview of what's possible. Cam, a couple of questions have popped up there.
Yeah, so the one here is, how do we set up Rostify for individual training sessions?
Sure, no problem. So if we go here, and just conscious of time as well, guys, only got a little bit left here, but very simple process. A lot of this would be done via import. So you would import all of your training sessions in bulk at once. But then once those training sessions have been imported, you can very easily edit those training sessions. For example, if this was down at St. Joseph's, Geelong, then you would easily be able to add this as a location, because a lot of clubs were found needing to spread out where they're training at the moment, given the restrictions on everyone training the same ground. So here's an example of how you can edit a particular training session once it's already been imported. Any others there, Cam?
The other one that came through was around the utilising of Rostify and the costs that it would incur for organisations to use this platform.
Sure. So in terms of getting started with us, guys, on our website, so Rostify.com, we've got a page set up specifically for this, for attendance tracking. Simply come through this page and put through an inquiry, and we can easily jump on a screen share call with you and show how it might relate to your club. In regards to the commercials of this, to be totally transparent, this is something we're trying to do to help. We're pretty fluid with our pricing and how it can work for most clubs. A lot of clubs at the moment are paying $1 per user per month. So if you have 50 players needing to be tracked through the month, then that would be $50 at the end of the month. Most clubs are seeing that as something that's pretty scalable and easy to consume, and especially given they may only need to be tracking attendance for maybe the next 3 months, it might be the next year, but we wouldn't be locking contracts with us. It would just be for the period needed for attendance tracking. So Cam, probably the last thing here I just wanted to show, we've got Dusty Martin here checking in some people, and this is basically what your coach would be seeing. They can very easily search for a player when they arrive and then check that player in like this, okay? And then it's a very simple process. You can also view by calendar, but it's a very simple process as well for you then to pull reports. You just simply edit the date ranges and hit download, and that will pull the senior attendance tracking, or you might want to break it up by netball. Whatever you need to do, you can pull reports on that data. Cam, maybe back over to you. Anything else that we'd like to go through?
Beautiful, Shan. And I think you sort of covered it there, but the ability to segment your club into teams, or even your team into groups, is certainly a key feature, and being able to check in and check out a player when they attend training. And as we said, there is some Sport Australia guidelines that have been released returning to sport and returning to training, and what the responsibilities are of clubs and sporting organisations across the country. And this certainly helps digitise that experience and removes the need for that pen or paper or that Excel spreadsheet that people sometimes rely on as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And it's getting a lot of traction every day. New clubs signing up in terms of needing to track their attendance, get out of the PDF sheets, and the platform can be flexible to adjust for those Sport Australia guidelines or your league guidelines for questions asked or timings or data needing to be reported back. The system can cater for that flexibility.
Beautiful. And Shan, if people need to get in touch with you, the best way is by visiting your website, Rustify.com.
Yep, absolutely. If I just go straight to the attendance tracking tab, we've got it sitting on off the homepage. So go through that and we'll have a chat.
Beautiful. Thanks very much, Shannon. And we really appreciate you joining us today. And I know we've got about 40 people online, so we really want to thank everyone for giving up their time today and making the effort to join us for a little over half an hour. If there are any other questions, feel free to drop them into the chat box. We will get them fed through to us. We will make the recording of this available on our website and send that link out to everyone who's attended us here today. So we really appreciate it. And if you need more information on how to get restarted from competitions, how to digitize your payments online, or how to report on people that have taken part in a match, or use our partners at Rustify as well, feel free to reach out to any of us here. We're here to help, and we look forward to seeing all the sporting bodies back on the training paddock and competitions very, very shortly. Shan, once again, thanks for your time. Andrew, thanks for your time as well, and thanks to the 40-odd people who have joined us today, and we hope you have a great day. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.